Hello, welcome to the Sideboard here at the Star City Games Players Championship, brought to you by Ultimate Garden Carnox Chairs. I'm Nick Miller alongside Zan Syed, Captain Team Lotus Box, 6 members in the Players Championship. We're talking Legacy, where you and your team kind of differed on this deck. So you and Jeremy are playing a Sultai snow deck.
Yeah.
How did Legacy go for your team if everyone kind of splintered off and did their own thing in the format?
So I think both of our options were good options, but it was important that we split because having one huge group on Legacy and let's say another huge group like Nova figures out that we're playing a graveyard strategy, they can just target it and all of Lotus Box will lose to all of Nova. So I felt like Jeremy and I were in the best position to jump off the train.
All right, well, we'll take a look here at this this deck that you guys brought to the event, a Leovold style snow deck, which is the best way I can describe it. Also a Bitter Blossom infused deck. But there's a lot going on here, and it's sort of I would just call it a mid-range deck, basically.
It is a mid-range.
So how did you guys come to this?
So this is based off the second place list at the last Grand Prix, which had Green Sun Zeniths in it, but I felt like what that deck discovered was the core of Goose or Ramp into Oko was the best thing that's going on, like we've discovered in basically every format.
Right.
So my goal was to build a version of this deck that would attack the Bant Oko deck, because the Bant Miracles deck is probably the best deck Legacy has had in a very long time. But I felt like I could put cards in this deck that would attack that deck directly.
Right, and Sultai is one of the, Leovold is one of the main cards that does that and fits right into the Sultai deck.
Yeah. So it's more of a threat that happens to have blue, so it meets the force counts. The main thing is about to come out.
Okay. Well, we've seen the previous snow qualifier and the other mana creature. Here we have Noble Hierarch to go along with it.
Yep.
Oko, as you said, we're trying to play Oko ahead of schedule, and then Abrupt Decay as well.
Yeah. I mean, Oko is just a necessary evil. It's basically replace Ren as the planeswalker that you have to play. So Abrupt Decay is a nice, easy answer to Oko, and Noble Hierarch lets you play an Oko before your opponent. So pretty straightforward on this slide.
Right, we're just trying to jam Oko as quick as possible.
Yep.
Here's the other namesake, though, Bitter Blossom. 3 copies. Now, we've seen 1 to 2 copy of this card float around back in the day with Grixis Delver or Grixis Control. Here, though, this seems to be one of the main parts of the deck.
For sure. I mean, food is already a really powerful card. How do you make food even better? You make 3 fairies with the food. So basically, I felt that Goose into Bitter Blossom and an Oko somewhere in between is going to allow you to have a stronger Oko as well as an engine that even if one part gets Abrupt Decayed, the other part will be able to tackle down any opponent.
Right, so on top of Oko being great, you get to upgrade your Bitter Blossom tokens into 3/3s.
Which is so sweet. You just have to experience it once to know that that's what you want to do in Legacy.
All right, Astrolabe, of course, because we're a snow deck, we're stretching the mana to do all kinds of unfair things. One Assassin's Trophy, that's just a catch-all for you?
Yep, catch-all. Also going to be good against Dilks, who's playing Depths, can kill Hogak, which Abrupt Decay can't. Astrolabe became a necessary evil because we decided to splash red in the sideboard.
All right, we'll move on through this list. We've got all the good blue cards here, Ponder, Brainstorm. Those aren't going anywhere. Force of Will.
Yeah.
You need to be able to fight things on the stack even when you're tapped out for your planeswalkers, right?
Definitely. But these numbers really hurt me. For this tournament specifically, trimming down on Force of Will was a smart thing to do because in blue mirrors, that's what you're going to do. But then again, you don't want to be dead to the people who decide not to play blue.
Right.
So that's the reason why I chose 3. Ponder also really hurt me. I've never really played 3 Ponder before, but Astrolabe is the truth. You have to play, once you play Astrolabe enough with Ponder and Brainstorm, you'll realize you want 4 Astrolabe, especially when you're going 4 colors.
All right, we'll move on. When you're in green, Veil of Summer is the name of the game now.
Yep.
But also, people who haven't experienced Sylvan Library, this card is also bonkers.
Yep. I mean, cracking a food, gaining 3 life is pretty close to taking 4 for a card. So making your food into cards, I mean, that's what Sylvan Library does. I think that it belongs in pretty much every Oko shell.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic because Sylvan Library has been around forever, but it's always been capped to how many cards you can usually take.
Exactly.
But with Oko, sky's the limit there.
Exactly.
So we've got quite the mana base here we're going to go through. Obviously, we have Bayou here.
Yep.
We have the assorted fetches and duels you would expect for a Sultai deck.
Yep.
But Volcanic Island's hanging out in these slides as well, which looks a little odd until you get to the sideboard, which we'll now move to. Because obviously you have your snow basics and such. And we'll see some red cards at the end of these slides. But we saw this crop rotation Bajuka Bog Caracas package in some of the Delver decks toward the end of the previous Legacy cycle before Rin and everything took over as a way to fight the Depths deck. And I assume that's what you're doing here as well?
Yeah, it felt like a free way to fight the Depths deck as well as the Hogak deck. And that's the reason why I chose it. The sideboard is a little bit odd compared to a regular Legacy tournament because we did have expected decks mapped out. Like we literally made an Excel sheet. We're like, all right, these are the decks that we expect all of these people to play. And I felt like we were close to like 90 to 95% accuracy.
All right. Carpet of Flowers, great in the blue mirrors. Here you get to leverage it pretty well.
Yep.
Your other crop rotation target here, Caracas.
Yep.
Then 3 Flusterstorm. That's a lot.
So the purpose of the Flusterstorms, and later on you're going to see the Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast, is to make a sideboard that really does well against other people playing a all-in Veil sideboard, right? Like, a lot of these decks have Veils in the main, so what you want to do is you want to turn off Veil. And Pyroblast doesn't get really hit as hard as it possibly can, and Flusterstorm lets you fight other people's Veils. So the purpose of this sideboard was, usually the black control decks did well against the white control decks, but we entered this realm where that wasn't true anymore. So we had to take some of their tricks, which was splashing the red, which we haven't seen in the past before. And we also haven't seen it with the bug decks that we've been seeing in Legacy tournaments. So I would say that was our little Lotus Box innovation for this.
Right.
For this deck.
Then on the previous page, there were 3 Leyline of the Void as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, you knew some of your teammates were playing a Hogak deck. Were you just fearing in case more people brought a graveyard-based deck?
So the Leyline, so this was really interesting, right? Like, I'm working with people. And they ended up playing a graveyard deck. I ended up not playing it. But it's quite interesting. The way our testing process worked was I was working on this deck before they decided Hogak. I believe that the level 1 play for this tournament would be, all right, Snoko won the GP. What is a deck that could prey on that? I was like, a graveyard deck. So I was just like, all right, in order to beat that level 1 pivot, what do? We would play Leylines. But then guess what? We took the level 1 pivot. So when we took the level 1 pivot, everybody on the team already knew that I was already thinking that. So if other people end up taking that pivot, then we end up having 6 people on graveyard, and that means that playing the Leylines is correct.
All right. Well, how do you feel getting you ready for this event? You're a player of the year this year.
Yep.
Went to a ton of opens, did very well, got the most points.
Yeah.
Now we're at the Players' Championship. This is what everyone was striving for all year. How are you feeling with the day to go?
I feel great. I think that a Lotus Box member is going to do well, and I hope it's me. But if it's not me, I'll still be just as happy if one of us is holding the trophy in the end.
All right. Well, you guys got a lot of shots at it, so we'll see how you do. For Zan Syed, I'm Nick Miller. Stay tuned to Star City Games all weekend long for the action here in Roanoke.